Hey gang, now there's a new way to create your own custom animated emojis. Generate them in Firefly and animate them in Photoshop. Now I'm starting off inside Adobe Firefly because it continues to be more powerful than Generative Fill inside Photoshop, and I'll show you what I mean in just a moment. And speaking of Photoshop, in case you're curious what in the world is new about Photoshop Beta 24.7, the answer is nothing. It's just a bunch of tweaks, so no new features. Anyway, here in Firefly, I'm looking at the text-to-image module, and I have entered a prompt. Round 3D smiley face emoji, big white teeth. I know you can read, but isn't it still nice to be read to? And I came up eventually. I had to refresh a bunch and play around with the prompt. I eventually came up with these guys. I don't like him at all, except for him. I love him. He's awesome. And so let's say you come up with something you like. Why, then you can click on options right there and choose use as reference image. Currently inside Photoshop, you cannot do that. You cannot use an image as a reference image. You can do the same stuff you can do in text to image mostly. I mean, you can start with a blank document, hit, Command All or whatever, select all, and then just hit Generative Fill, enter a prompt, and you could get this result right here eventually, one would think, if you have enough monkeys at typewriters, but you don't have the option to use this guy as a reference image, which I did, and I came up with this collection right here. And so basically, I kept the prompt exactly the same. Then your option is to decide whether you want to weight the WEIGHT, weight the reference image, in which case you're not going to get much variation. Notice that cleft in his tongue continues. And his teeth are shaped pretty uniformly and so forth. So he doesn't vary much at all. Whereas if you weight the prompt, once again, WEIGHT, then you are going to have quite the variety indeed. Now, you ask me, that's too much variety, because after all, we want to animate these emoji variations. And so I kept things kind of close to the center. As they are by default, and then you just go ahead and decide, gosh, I like this guy and I'm going to download him and so forth. Anyway, I'm now looking at my favorite variations here inside Adobe Bridge, and that way I could name them, rename them, so that we don't have those just ludicrous names. Which can be useful, but once we start putting these images inside Photoshop, it gets a little laborious, because these will be the layer names, by the way, as you're about to see. I'm going to go ahead and select all these guys and hit the space bar just so we can see them. And I just want you to see the kind of variety that we have. And so notice we get more colorful, we get less colorful, we get bigger smiles, we get pointier smiles, we get smoother teeth, and we get different shinier tongues and different eyes, slightly different eyes. There's that first guy that we were looking at that I think this is my base image. And so we've got all kinds of variations. And so you want that, just not too much, don't you know? Because if you have too much variation, you start to lose the continuity. Anyway, I'll go ahead and select all these guys once again, and then I want to plop them in layers inside Photoshop automatically. So I'll go up to the Tools menu, choose Photoshop, and choose this guy right here, Load Files into Photoshop Layers. And that's going to switch me over to Photoshop. Happens to be Photoshop Beta, most recent version, 24.7, as I was saying. And you can see over here in the Layers panel that Bridge has communicated what it wants Photoshop to do. And so we have a bunch of layers. Now we want to animate them by going up to the window menu and choosing the timeline command. I've already chosen it, which is why I have the timeline panel down here at the bottom of the screen. You want to click this guy. We don't want a video timeline. We want frame animation. Unless you want to make an MP4 or something, like that. We want frame animation for an animated GIF, one would assume. Very flexible file format. Then click on frame animation. And then the very next step is to turn all these guys into keyframes. inside your animation, and you do that by clicking on the hamburger and choosing make frame from layers. And this is such an important upfront step, because if you don't choose it right away, then notice that make frames from layers is dimmed. So the very next thing it does is dim itself. You can't come back to it unless you only have one frame sitting around. If you have two frames, it doesn't work. It's so dumb. But anyway, I want you to see that we do have every single one of these guys allocated to a different frame. So in frame 1 is smiley 10. Things are upside down. Frame 2 is smiley 9. That's not my fault. That's just the way they came in. Frame 3 is smiley 8, and so forth. So you can see one smiley per each of the frames. All right, now, we will eventually want to tween between these guys, because otherwise, if I just played this outright, then it would be a little jarring. You could go with this. That could be your animation. And if so, it's simply done. That is a quick and dirty form of emoji animation if you're looking for that. And it doesn't have to be emojis. It could be anything that you want to create with Firefly. And then find a really great image that you think is expresses what you want it to, and then create some variations. Anyway, I want to be able to blend between these guys. At the very least, blend the opacity, which is about all you can do. And so in Photoshop. And so what I'm going to do is select frame 10, the last frame, which is smiley 1 up here at the top of the layers panel. And I'm going to create another frame by clicking on this guy right here. And the reason is that I want to be able to fade between each one of these emojis. Now, what you're supposed to be able to do, you're not supposed to have to do this step. You're supposed to be able to tween right there. There's a tween icon. And if you click on it, you'll bring up a tween dialog box, and then you would tween with the first frame. You would tween around to the first frame and add as many tween frames as you want. Opacity is what I'm looking for, because position and layer effects don't vary inside this file. Problem is, you will fade to translucency and then back to opacity, which is not what we want. We want to fade between the emojis. So I'll click cancel. I don't want to do that. So what we're seeing are a few ways to interpolate AI generated frames, which is cool stuff. But see this guy, how his expression changes over time? You can do that in Photoshop, and to learn how, join my Patreon, which is patreon.com/deeknow. And now back to animating an AI emoji. Just to make sure things loop around successfully, I'll select smiley 10 down here at the bottom of the pack. And if you can see all of your layers, all you have to do is Alt-Option drag it to the top of the stack like so. Notice, because I had the Alt-Option key down at the beginning of my drag, I'm seeing a double arrow icon that shows me I'm going to make a duplicate. So I just cloned that smiley 10 layer, just made a copy of it, and then I'll turn it on so that we have the opportunity to fade from smiley 1 to smiley 10. And now what you need to do, frame number 1 is fine as is, but frame number 2, go ahead and select it, and then turn on smiley 10 so that you can fade between them. Go to 3 and then turn on smiley 9. Go to 4, frame 4, and turn on smiley 8. And this is the kind of thing that I'm sure if Adobe ever thought they were ever going to revisit the timeline panel ever again, that they could slim this experience down a little bit. But this panel does kind of major in tedium as it stands, but it's powerful. So anyway, I just went ahead and made sure that we have a pair of layers to tween between in each case. Now I'll click on frame 1, and what you would think you could do was tween all these guys at the same time. You saw what it looks like. I can tween to the next frame and add some frames. I'll tell you about that in a second. But what I would hope I could do is tween between all these keyframes. That's what they are right now, at once. That's what a powerful program like Photoshop should be able to do. But if I shift click on frame 11, if you have multiple frames selected, then everybody in between, notice if I click the tween icon, I don't get a dialog box. It just tweens between them. So we have this fade that I was telling you about. Notice checkerboard, it's fading the transparency and back. Come on. Anyway, undo that, obviously. So what you have to do is tween between one pair of frames at a time. It is tedious. Yeah, believe me. But it's not. I'm going to make it fun, okay? Promise. I'll click on a little tween icon with frame 1 selected. Oops, nope, I didn't select just frame 1. Okay, frame 1, click on it, click on the little tween icon. See, I'm making it fun already. And notice, okay, parameters, I'm going to turn off position and effects just because there are no layer effects. I don't change the position. Opacity is all I want. And then next frame is what I want. I'm going to add 4 frames. This is important because this will be, you could go with some other periodicity. You could figure that out on your own, but 4 is going to work out beautifully, at which point I'll click OK. And now, notice that frame 1, he's the keyframe, right? Then we have 2, 3, 4, and 5. Those 4 frames are the tweens. You can see them fading. And then 6 is the next keyframe. And so with frame 6 selected, I'll click on the tween icon once again, and I could vary this, but I don't want to. I want to keep it exactly the same. So I'll just click OK, just press enter. That's all you have to do. Then frame 7, 8, 9, and 10 are the tweens. 11 is the next keyframe. So it's going to be 1, 6, 11, 16, 21. You get the idea. All right, so I'll just press enter. I'll click on frame 16. I'll click on tween. I'll press enter. I'll click on frame 21. I'll click tween. See, I told you I'd make this a merry adventure in tweening. Now I'll select 26 and click tween, and there it is. And 31 would be the next one, and don't do that. Don't click on the new icon. Don't get too passive about your actions. Click tween, do it again, go forward, click 36, then tween, and then we're looking for frame 41, click tween, and then we're looking for frame 46. There's only 2 left, 46 and 47, so click tween, and that wraps it up. And now 47, 48, 49, and 50, notice how we don't have any checkerboard transparency in our tween. And those are the tween frames right there. And then 51 would be the next keyframe. We don't need it, though, because we already have that in the form of frame 1. And so what I want to do is just go ahead and fast forward to frame 51 right there, select it, and get rid of it. You can click the trash icon, but if you do, you'll get an alert. And so if you want to skip the alert, press the Alt key or the Option key on the Mac and click. And now we have ourselves a tweened animation that will play smoothly, such as it is. So notice that we are fading basically between each one of the keyframes. So we're not morphing. I don't want to make it out to be more than it is. One day, hopefully, we'll have some morphing controls thanks to generative AI from Adobe, but right now we do not. All right, so what I want to do is kind of hang a little bit for a fraction of a second on each one of the keyframes. So I'll go ahead and stop the playback, and I'll click frame 1. And then I'll select each of the other keyframes by Control or Command clicking on it. And that way you can select them not out of order, but independently of the tween frames. And so I'm Control or Command clicking on every 1 and every 6 frame. So 31 in this case, 36, I'm looking for 41, I'm looking for 46, and that's the end because it got rid of 51. And now notice they're all set to 0 seconds, which means they're not hanging for any longer than the browser or what have you is interested in playing the given frame for inside of a GIF file. Now I could make these guys hang for a half a second if I wanted to, but that's a pretty long hang. A fifth of a second I found, 0.2 here, I found to be too short, so I went with other, and I set this guy to 0.3, and then I'll click OK. So just a fraction of a second, and now let's see what that looks like. I'll just make sure we're starting at the beginning and click play, and you can see that we fade, and then we hold, and we fade, and we hold, so that we're emphasizing each one of the keyframes. All right, now I want to show you something here. Let's say you could just export this as a GIF animation. Once again, it's another point. You can decide when you want to stop, when you feel comfortable that you've achieved enough here. But I want the background to be transparent. And also, I don't want the shape of the face to keep changing. So notice that this guy's got a little bit of a flat head going on. If I switch over to, let's say, frame 21, it's even flatter up at the top, and it's wider as well. His face is wider. Whereas, let's check out, let's say, frame 31. It's wider still. And so, in other words, it gets shorter. So, that's more round. there's a more round face at 36. So these are keyframes once again. And so what I want to do is mask all of these layers. Now I could mask each one of the layers independently, by the way, because they do change, and that way you can keep their changing as part of your animation. If that's what you wanted to do, which is a lot more work, then you would have wanted to do that before generating the keyframes, because, you know, now we have all these keyframes sitting here. What I'm going to do instead is just go ahead and mask everybody by selecting all the layers. That's a Control Alt or Command Option A to select them all, or just Shift click on this guy. And then I'm going to group them together. Now, this is very important. This is the kind of thing where you might want to go up to the File menu and choose the Save command, because what happens frequently is that the relationship between your layers and your frames gets busted because it's kind of tenuous inside Photoshop. And so I'll show you what I mean. I'm going to select them all and press Control G, Command G on the Mac to group them. And I'll just call this new group Emojis, let's say. And then look at my frames, just give them a casual glance, and you'll see that the first frame contains a very cheerful emoji. We're seeing it on the screen. The second frame doesn't contain a darn thing. Why is that, do you suppose? Well, I'll go ahead and twirl open my Emojis group, and notice, no, they're visible, but they've dimmed eyeballs, and that's because the entire group got turned off somehow, so I'll have to turn it on, and there it is. There's the tween right there. And now I've got to do the same thing for all these other frames. At least I can click on frame 3 and then shift click on 50 to select that range and turn on that group. And now you'll want to confirm, won't you, that you haven't made a negative difference so far. In my case, I just spent the last few minutes making no difference, but that's still good. All right, now I want to create a mask. And I'm going to mask the group so that all of the layers are masked in kind. Now, I'm going to go with a vector-based mask, just because that way, that just gives you more flexibility in case something else goes wrong. And so I'm going to start with the ellipse tool right here. And that allows me to draw an ellipse, of course, a vector-based ellipse. And I want to draw it from the center out. So that means I need to figure out where the center is by going to the View menu, choosing Guides, and then choosing New Guide right here. And you can create either a horizontal or vertical guide, either way, and then set the position to 50%. And that way you're right at the mid mark inside of any given image. So it's right there in the center. And now I need to do the same horizontally as well. So I'll choose Guides from the View menu once again, choose New Guide, and set it to 50%, and then select Horizontal. Click OK, and there's my center mark. Now what I can do is click with the ellipse tool in order to create an ellipse of a specific size. And I figured this out in advance. The magic numbers for me for this specific image are a width of 920 and a height of 868. And I just figured that out through trial and error. And now I'll click OK, and we get this ellipse right here. Thing is, I don't want it to be on its own independent layer. So I'll press Control X or Command X on the Mac. In order to cut it to the clipboard, I'll click on the group right there here inside the layers panel, and instead of clicking on add layer mask, I'll press the Control key or the Command key on the Mac and click to create a new vector mask right there. And that way I can paste that ellipse into place. You can see it's too low, and so I'm going to bring it up 34 pixels, by the way, I figured out, from the center point by pressing Shift up arrow 3 times. 1, 2, 3. That's not working for me, and that's because I got to switch to the arrow tool. So I'll go ahead and grab that guy, Path Selection tool, Photoshop calls it, and then I'll press Shift up arrow 1, 2, 3 times, and then the up arrow key 1, 2, 3, 4 times. And that just happens to work where this image is concerned. And I can confirm that by clicking off the ellipse to deselect it, hopefully. And then I'll go ahead and undo all of that, won't I? Because look at that. Oh, cheer, happifulness. That's what I'm feeling. I'm so happy I forgot what the word is. Anyway, I'll go ahead and undo those movements. There we go. There it is. And now, it's still off. All right. Well, we'll just go back to this position right here. It makes me feel so jolly. And now I'll shift click on the final frame. So I'm working on all the frames at the same time. Is that the problem? And I'll press Control V or Command V on the Mac. And they're not, that's not the problem. That's not the problem at all. Why is it doing this? Why are you doing this, Photoshop? All right. Well, anyway, let's just try to see if we can get this to work. I know this needs to go up, so I'm going to the move tool is still selected, so I'll press shift up arrow a few times, 3 times, and then nudge it a few times as well. And then let's see what I need to do for these guys. I'll go ahead and grab them, and I'll move this guy into a better position. Let's see. Oh, I can snap it into the center. Did that work for all the frames? It did. All right. And now I'm going to press those same keys again. Shift up arrow 1, 2, 3, and then 1, 2, 3, 4 with just the up arrow by itself. And now let's hope that this is going to work. It doesn't seem to have worked at all. I've never experienced this problem before, but hey, there's a first time for everything. So I guess what I need to do is, in order to get it set, yeah, it's centered once again, so that's good. 1, 2, 3, 4. I guess I have to do that for every single frame. All right, obviously that's intolerable, so I backed up a little bit using the history panel, by the way, and I went back to the point at which I added my vector mask. Let's try again. I'm going to paste in that ellipse, which is coming in low, and it's coming in at the wrong spot inside these other layers. Interesting. All right, I'm going to undo that. Why is that happening? Let's see if I try it again. I'm gonna try a different frame and see if I paste it in at this point on this frame. No, it's off on every other frame, is it not? All right, so what I think I need to do, let's see. Now let's drag it into place and see if that works across the other frames. It worked across that frame. It didn't work across the other ones. I'm so frustrated because I can't get this to happen except while I'm recording. Oh, good. It moved these guys. Okay, I think I'm onto something here. It moved these guys, so the ones that I moved manually, but the other ones are in good shape. All right, now instead of dragging or instead of using nudging, I'm going to go up to the edit menu and choose a free transform path. That's what I'm going to choose. Control D, Command T on the Mac, as if you need a shortcut during this experience. Now notice up here in the options bar, I've turned on the delta, and that way I can enter 34. I know it needs to be 34 pixels taller, higher, that is. But if you enter a Y value of 34, I'm not going to demonstrate that. It's too dangerous. It would move things down. So I'm going to just enter negative 34, and notice the other frames go blank for a second, and that does move I know it doesn't look like it's in the right position. That aside, it does work out very nicely. If it works out at all, that moves that upward 34 pixels. I'll press the enter key a couple of times to accept that change, and it appears to have happened across all the frames. All right, let's click off in order to not see that path outline anymore. And as soon as I did that, something went horribly wrong. Why is that? Why did it go horribly wrong? It just undid my movement entirely. What is going on? I'm so mystified. So this is the kind of thing that might haunt you when you're working inside. All right. We're going to try this one more time. I'm going to, at least I'm tempted just to start over, just to start completely over from scratch. But I'm going to make this work. Darn it. Delta is turned on negative 34. We're going to give it a try. We're going to press the enter key. That's what we're going to do as a group. And now I'm going to hit the play button. I think something's off on this guy. Okay, hopefully he's the only one that's messed up. And now I'll just go ahead and nudge him. That's what I'm going to do. 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 4, and nudge it by itself. And now we'll see if I hit the play button, if everybody is aligned, and they aren't. They aren't all aligned. It's as if the movement never happened. So this guy's high. So let's bring it back down by itself. And this guy's low. So, I thought this would be such a great idea to work with a layer mask right here. I've got another idea though. I do. I'm going to click off the mask. I'm going to switch to the move tool right there. And I'm going to unlink the layer mask from the group like so. And now everybody's the same, right? The layer mask is too low for everybody. All right. Now I'm going to do that same thing. I'm going to raise, no, not the group. I'm going to click on the layer mask and raise it by pressing shift. Nope, that is not working either. This is no joke. I'm going to lose my mind, and I'm going to try one more thing. I'm going to load this guy as a selection outline by control or command clicking on that little mask right there, and I'm going to get rid of it. I'm just going to throw it away. That's it. Okay, yes, vector mask, go away for all time. And now let's just convert this guy to a regular mask and unlink it like so. And now with the move tool still active, I'll press shift up arrow 3 times and then up arrow 1, 2, 3, 4. And with any luck, I am going to be able to now press the play button and play this animation without that thing jumping around. So apparently, I've done it before, I swear to you. Obviously, I tried this out many times before recording this movie, and it worked out perfectly and just that one time. So there, at least you've seen about 17 workarounds, one of which actually worked here inside Photoshop. Now, this is where things get kind of fun. I'm going to press, because that was not kind of fun at all. I'm going to press Command semicolon to hide the guidelines. And that's a, control semicolon here on the PC. Now I'll go up to the file menu. This is the best way. The best thing to do at this point is save. This is a very good point to save your work, because after all, things are in good shape. I'm not going to bother with that. Well, actually, yeah, you know what? I will. And now I've done it. I just went ahead and did it off camera here. And now what I'm going to do is choose export, because I don't want to operate without a net. Choose export. And this guy right here, save for web legacy. Now you can save GIF files just using the save command if you want to. You'd want to use save a copy, but then you can't preview what's going on. Whereas save for web legacy continues to be a really great function because it brings up this detailed dialog box. It's just that for whatever reason, Adobe decided that the new export feature, which doesn't support animated GIFs, is a better way to go. And they just don't support this feature anymore, but they know well that it's still very useful, so they leave it in the software. So like everything. Anyway, so we're saving a GIF image right here. We want transparency. We want an adaptive palette is what we're looking for, as opposed to selective. Go with adaptive. You'll just get better colors going on, because you are reducing the number of colors in the image from millions potentially to 256 at most. And so you're going to have to let Photoshop choose what those 256 are. Leave dither set to 100% most likely. You can play with that if you want to, but this is very important. Set not only turn on transparency, of course, but set this option here, not to no transparency dither, because if you do that, you'll get some choppy edges. You want transparency dither because you only have one level of transparency with a transparent GIF file. It's either opaque or transparent, so you need some dither to make it look better. And then click play. It's always a good idea to click play to make sure that you like what you see. And if you do, which I do, oh my goodness, I like it so much, then you just want to go ahead and click save in order to save off that animated GIF, which I've gone ahead and done. And now we have an animated emoji created as a custom emoji, unlike anything anybody else out there has, thanks to our ability to generate a bunch of different variations using a combination of Firefly and Photoshop. All right, now, at the risk of trying your patience, I want to show you one more cool thing you can do with your animated emoji that involves and incorporates Generative Fill here inside Photoshop, so we don't have to go back to Firefly, in other words, in order to enhance the eyes. So check it out. Every single one of the keyframes has a different set of eyes. And I want to show you how I pulled that off, just in case you don't think what I've created yet is scary enough. All right, so I'll just go ahead and stop this animation, and I want to go up to frame 46. So is that what I want? I think so. Actually, a little bit back. I want to go to frame 41. So the thing about 46 here, it's a keyframe because the 1 and 6 frames are keyframes. I'll go up to the top. Notice that he's the only one that doesn't have a special pair of eyes. So if I were to turn that layer off dangerously for a moment, this guy below has new eyes. These are his original eyes. These are his new eyes. And so I want to give this guy some new eyes as well. And so I need to get rid of the keyframes that I don't want because I'm going to have to generate tweens that I don't want because I'm going to have to generate new ones. So 41 is a keyframe. Want to keep that. 42 through actually 45 are tweens, so I want to get rid of those. And just so I don't get too confused here, I also want to select frames 47, 48, 49, and 50. I'm control or command clicking on each one of them so that I'm keeping 41, 46, and 51, which are keyframes. And now I'll alt or option click on the trash icon to get rid of them. Don't press the delete key. Pressing the delete key will get, or backspace will get rid of the active layer. All right, now what I want to do is change this guy's eyes. So first thing, you want to make sure that the proper layer is selected, which happens to be Smiley 1 in my case. And then I'll switch over to the object selection tool. Notice that mode is set to lasso up here at the top in the options bar. If I hover over these eyes, actually look at that. I could either drag around them if I wanted to select them, or it looks like I'm going to luck out. I can just click on one of the eyes to select it and shift click on the other one. So thank you, object selection tool, for finally saving me some work. Anyway, I'll click on this guy now. If you were to use generative fill right here on that selection, then the problem is you would get these little kind of white tracer lines right there. You would fill, it basically fudges the selection outline. Generative fill does as things stand now. And it not only fudges it outwards, but inwards as well. And so you're going to get a halo, in other words. So what you want to do is click on this guy here in the contextual taskbar and choose expand selection, and I went with a value of 12 pixels. Click OK, and you can see that moves the selection boundary outward. Now I'll click generative fill, and here's the prompt I came up with. Eyes looking upward, thick, heavy eyelids. Now, it's anyone's guess if this is going to produce a good effect or not. And most likely it's just going to do its own crazy random AI thing. But in a moment, if my luck holds out as it has been, I've been so exceedingly lucky so far, then I will see some kind of eyes appear. And so notice, those don't look like heavy-lidded eyes to me, but those do, don't they? Anyway, of course, you could generate again and try it some more if you wanted to, or you could just decide that's good enough for this demo, and then I'll go ahead and click on frame 41, a keyframe, of course, and then click tween, and then make sure I'm tweening with the next frame, adding 4 frames, click OK, and then advance to frame 46 and go ahead and click tween, and then I will do the same thing, click OK. And now I've got an extra guy hanging out here, but he only hangs out for 0 seconds, so it's not really, if I really wanted to clean this file up, I'd get rid of him, but that would come at the expense of me being able to modify that last frame in the future, that last keyframe. So anyway, notice that I do have a little bit of a problem here. If I click at this location, let's say, actually I'll click at frame 41, which is a keyframe, and click play. And you can see that the tweens play very slowly, and that's because I set the keyframes to play for a half a second. I actually have these guys pausing for a half a second here. So what I need to do is go ahead and go to the end of the animation here. Click on 42, which I know is a tween. Shift click on 50, which I know is a tween. 46 is a keyframe in between, so I need to control or command click on it to deselect it. And then change any one of these guys to no delay so that they play more quickly. And notice now that the keyframes hang, but the transitional frames play very quickly indeed. Now, let's say I want to make a change. There is a point at which I really don't like the eyes, and it comes up right here. those fish eyes right there. I don't care for them. And so if you decide you want to switch them out, which you can change them out to any other, in here in the properties panel, to any other variation. So I could go with this guy right here, and that would change that particular frame. It should change this frame, by the way. Oh, I'm on the wrong layer. Don't do that. Undo. Go ahead and find the right layer. It should be a visible layer. This guy right here. Yes, it is. If I turn it off and then turn it back on, you can see those are the fish eyes. And then notice that we have other eyes that we can play with, such as this guy, or this guy right here. Or I could just paste in my most recent prompt, which wasn't very successful, but still, go ahead and try it out. So you can try adding, more and more prompts to the same selection, the same layer, that is, and it's all contained inside of a single smart object, which means that you can switch between them anytime you like. Wow, that's weird, and that is definitely very scary right there. So let's say I want to keep it kind of fun, cheerful, weird still, but what I would do then, this is the new keyframe, but the problem is the neighboring frames don't match. See, those keyframes don't match at all. And so what we need to do is go ahead and get rid of the keyframes. So 17 through, what would it be, 25. So click on 17, shift click on 25, control or command click on 21, then alt or option click on the trash icon. Again, don't hit the delete key. Then go ahead and click on frame 16 because it's a keyframe right now. Then click on the tween icon. Don't worry about any of the settings, just accept the last settings you applied. Then click on 21, which is another keyframe, the one we just created with those weird eyes right there. Click on tween, hit the enter key, and now we should have a smooth animation. The problem is, of course, that these frames hang too long. So I'll click on frame 25, shift click on frame 17, control or command click on 21, which is a keyframe, to turn it off. Click on any of these guys and choose no delay. And now let's see if this works. I'll just start at any old frame. Get this out of the way, please. And then press play in order, or click on the play button in order to play my seamless animation that hangs on each one of the keyframes. And of course, if you want to save this out as an animated GIF file with which to amaze your friends and associates, then you would choose Save for Web. And that is at least one really long way to go about creating this really awesome custom animation based on AI emojis here inside Photoshop. Thank you so much for watching. Feel free to like, subscribe, and turn on notifications. And by the way, another way to animate your custom AI emoji is with the Liquify filter, as I explain at patreon.com/DeekNow. And then go to Deek.com and sign up for my newsletter. I'm Deke McClellan. This is Deek Now.